this is the man, teaches everywhere against our people, against the law, and against this place. We said, oh, he doesn't do that. Oh, in all the speeches Acts records, he does just that. And in his letters, he does worse. So, I mean, I don't think, you may think they're being unfair to Paul, and we don't want to mob anybody, but if, again, I use the Mecca and Islam as an example. If I went into Mecca, into the Kaaba, given my ideas and sort of snuck in there on false pretenses and brought some Greeks or some people with my mindset with me, and people saw me in the Kaaba, you think they'd stop to figure out if I was totally on the up and up? In the Kaaba, my God, they'd mob me and I'd have my throat cut in 2 ticks, probably be beheaded and chucked out of there as lickety-split. You have to see that's the atmosphere you're dealing with here, a very fanatical situation. They say, oh, well, these are fanatics, therefore we shouldn't care about them. Well, Jesus cared about them. Jesus came out of these people. Jesus came out of this situation here. So, you know, something to be looked into carefully. And if these accusations from their perspective are accurate, you should, in fact, take that into consideration. Now he's brought Greeks into the temple. That's the problem, bringing foreigners in who are not following the law, who are not, you know, and defiling this is how they saw it. And they barred the doors behind him. And then the chief captain, as we saw, recognized him. They talk about his citizenship. Okay, in chapter 22, let's see, he tells about his history, how he came from Cilicia, line 3, he says, which is in southern Turkey today, Asia Minor. He studied at the feet of Gamaliel, one of the most famous Pharisee fathers. And then he says he was zealous for the law, or zealous for God, again using the zealot language. Someone told me that there's some people taking Greek here that don't think that we're translating the Greek properly. Well, if you look at line 3 of 22, it says zelotes, and we are doing the Greek where it's necessary properly. Maybe you're not doing the Greek properly, but wherever a Greek word is a key word, not obviously a general pronunciation, a general description of things, wherever it's a key word, you go find it, zelotes, and there it is. In line 22:3. So the zealots are definitely a part of this. And notice this way, line 4, the way in the Dead Sea Scrolls is the name for the moon of the scrolls. So in fact, the way seems to be somewhat involved in the way Paul thinks about it. And notice in line 14, he speaks about Jesus as the righteous one, the just one. And so the Messiah is known also as the righteous one, Greek dikaios. And I was standing by and agreeing to his death, and I kept the clothes of those who killed him. Now I told you that that is wrong. And it shows the authors don't understand things. It is true that the clothes were stripped off someone, but the clothes were stripped off the person stoned, not the stoners. And that shows you right there, this is being garbled by people overseas who really don't understand what they're writing about totally. Sort of like listening to Bill O'Reilly in Fox News or something. He gets 85% right. But it's also like listening to Michael Moore. He gets maybe, 56% right or something, or 75% right. I mean, and the rest is Michael Moore. So you've got to, you have to realize that this, unfortunately, is not supernatural. I wish I could agree with you that it was. Anyway, Paul then is let before the Sanhedrin. Line 30, chapter 23, and there's an argument there. I don't know if we can, this is not the we document anymore. As you see, it swings back and forth in and out. And Ananias hits him in the mouth, supposedly. This Ananias is one of the rich high priests that Josephus talks about in the 50s and 60s. And he's a Herodian stooge. His he's not someone loved of the people. So even if he did hit Paul, I mean, that wouldn't represent what the people felt anyway. It would be what the Herodian establishment felt. You whitewashed wall, line 3. You dare to judge. Paul has got a lot of nerve, if you like, if this is a true picture. And in line 12, the Jews are plotting again. Before line 12 occurs, he says that Paul knows that the difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees has to do with the resurrection of the dead, line 6. So he throws that item out, so he gets the Pharisees and the Sadducees in the Sanhedrin arguing with themselves, according to this portrait. Where does that point about the difference of the Pharisees and the Sadducees has to do with the resurrection of the dead come from? Josephus, in his description of the Pharisees and Sadducees. In fact, that's the only thing he says about these Sadducees. So I would think that the person writing this has gotten his information from Josephus, because the Pharisees and Sadducees differ about a lot of other things besides the resurrection of the dead. But that's the only point made in Josephus. Now, I may be wrong, and it may be that Paul and Josephus know the same point, and that's it. You'll have to decide that. But this presentation, why scholars think, shows knowledge of Josephus' works. He says it both in the Jewish War and the Antiquities. But here's an interesting point. After this fight breaks out, and Paul is basically told that he's going to have to go to Rome and testify, there are some Jews that made a plot. And line 12, they put themselves under curse, saying, "We will neither eat or drink until we have killed Paul. With a curse we have cursed ourselves, to taste nothing until we have killed Paul." Now this makes it look like these zealot Jews, these extremist Jews, are on the same side as the people like Ananias, which is not the case. Because when the zealots take over 10 years later, or less than 10 years later, this is about 59, about 7 or 8 years later, they actually are taking over earlier than that in parts of the temple, because Agrippa II and Bernice can't even enter the temple by 66. They're being stoned by the zealots who won't let them near the temple because they think they're polluted, corrupt people. It's all in Josephus. And in any case, when they do finally take over, the first thing they do is kill all these high priests like Ananias. So, I mean, these extremist groups that would be taking these kind of temporary Nazirite oaths really have nothing to do